Hi, this is Kalari. Welcome to Scrum and Agile Digest. Let's continue looking at the anti-patterns of Scrum, especially the anti-patterns of the Scrum Master here. So, laissez-faire Scrum Master means you just let the team run around without any guidance, right? Just because it's a self-managed team, you say, hey, let them run wild. No, that's not what a Scrum Master is going to do. Although it's a self-managed team, the Scrum Master still needs to guard the Agile and Scrum principles. That's very important. The Scrum Master is accountable for the team and they must remove impediments or risks. Don't have a rookie Scrum Master. You need a lot of experience, flexibility, and adaptability, right? There's a lot of learning, there's a lot of unlearning. Just having a Scrum certificate is not enough. You need to have experience on how to run a Scrum team, right? Every Scrum team's experience is going to be different, so you need to be adaptive for that. A clerical Scrum Master, it's not just about setting up meetings, or taking notes. You need to follow the agile values towards continuous improvement and collectively help the team, right, to realize how they're going to do something, right, and always uphold the values of the Scrum Agile Manifesto. There are some Scrum Masters who are very interested in the number of hours the individuals have used in a sprint. That's not the goal of a Scrum Master. The Scrum Master should focus on the outcome of the sprint as a team and not 100% utilization of the team members. Dominant Scrum Master, they assign the tasks to the team rather than letting them self-organize or self-manage. Again, not a responsibility of the Scrum Master. They shouldn't be assigning the tasks. Teams have to take the lead in assigning tasks to each other, right? The team has to pull the tasks from the sprint backlog and assign it to themselves. A Scrum Master is unable to resolve impediments for the team. That's an anti-pattern. They are there to help the team progress towards the goal, towards the MVP. And then, a Scrum Master who doesn't, show burn-down charts, burn-up charts, doesn't inspect or adapt for continuous improvement, doesn't build out artifacts, that's a complete no-no. Again, going with the more anti-patterns of Scrum Master, if you are a Scrum Master for multiple teams, that's not going to cut it. You have to have only a single team for a Scrum Master. You need to be dedicated to a single team, right? Otherwise, it can be distractive and Scrum Master will not give their best, right? The team is responsible for achieving the sprint goal and it's not the sole responsibility of the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master should not be ordering or sizing the stories. The ordering should come from the product owner and the sizing should come from the Scrum team. Spoon-feeding Scrum Master, all the impediments doesn't need the attention of the Scrum Master, doesn't need Scrum Master's help. It's a self-managed team. They should be able to talk to each other and manage most of the impediments. If it's beyond the team's capability, only then you should highlight it to the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master basically needs to protect the team. They need their team to look good and meet the goal of the sprint. They are not there to please the management or the product owner. That's very prudent that we know this. They need to interpret metrics properly. They shouldn't act as a project manager in daily stand-up calls. Micromanage. No, they need to let the team decide what they're going to deliver next and promote self-organization of the team. That's very important. The Scrum Master shouldn't make decisions for the team. The team, again, is self-organizing, so they should be able to take their own decisions. And like I mentioned, Scrum Master shouldn't have sole responsibility for delivery of the product. All the team members need to be committed to deliver the product. Only then quality is going to be built in. Apart from that, these are the regular things that a Scrum Master will do. Conduct the Scrum ceremonies, remove obstacles at the initial stage. They should adhere to the Agile Manifesto. They need to make sure that the product backlog is prioritized, right? And you work with the product owner to make sure the product backlog is prioritized. You have a healthy backlog before every sprint planning meeting. You try to finish up all the tasks and user stories in a sprint that's been committed. Number of undone items should be kept to a minimum. Don't overburden the Scrum team. Whatever velocity that you've agreed on, make sure that that's delivered do not overlap any two sprints. Let's say my sprint ends on a Wednesday, right, in a week. I'm just giving you an example. Don't make sure the second sprint also starts on a Wednesday, on the same day, right? That's too much. So at least give them a little bit of time so they can plan for the next sprint and maybe start the sprint the next day, which is Thursday. Or if you have the flexibility, Friday, but one day should be sufficient. And then there's something called as fake Scrum, where you call some Scrum butts, where you might say, I do Scrum, but I don't do so and so. I do Scrum, but I don't do retrospectives. Just an example. So that's fake Scrum. Everything has to gel together, work together. All the ceremonies have to work together. Only then it's Scrum. Otherwise, it's fake Scrum, right? As a Scrum Master, you need to have a deep understanding of the process and help the team understand the process as well. Just don't do Scrum ceremonies or the Scrum Master role blindly. You should have the right mindset. You need to be transparent. You need to be adaptive. There's continuous improvement, right? It's a different way of thinking. It's not just about practices. Then more things, the Scrum Master, you're waiting on somebody else to do a change. No, it's your process. It's your team. You have to be the leader here, right? You have to be the servant leader here. Don't wait for somebody else. It's not just enough to understand Agile or Scrum. Being a Scrum Master is a journey. You can never stop learning and be open to that, right? Bring your experiences from other projects into your current project and learn from your mistake. There's always something you can learn, and always do teamwork, right? It's a great team. You believe that you can do it together. You're self-organized. If you and help your team in whichever way you can, motivate them, right? Do the inspection, do the adaptation. And also another thing is, if let's say you're waterfall, you're not Agile right now, don't wrongly assume that it's going to be very easy for you to move to Agile. It's not as easy as it seems. It's best to go small, take baby steps, and instead of going big bang, take small. And we have talked about this in some previous slides that we will see more of this when we do the case studies of successful companies adapting Agile. You have to take baby steps, right? So maybe you take one department, or one section in a department, you convert them to Agile, see how it works for you. Note down your experiences, your some things which didn't go well, and then try to do it for the second team, then third team, then fourth team, and then slowly, if you see that Agile is working for you and you understand how you need to adapt Agile, you can basically go big bang. But it's best not to go big bang in the first step itself, because you are increasing the risks for yourself. Now let's look at some product owner anti-patterns, right? If you have a part-time product owner or like a know-it-all product owner, I know everything, it's my way or the highway, I don't need to listen to anybody else, dominant PO, that's not going to work. You need to have an open mind. You need to involve the rest of the team, the subject matter experts, the Scrum Masters, while you're writing the stories. You need their input. The dominant PO might provide the who, why, how, and what. That's not their responsibility. They should only provide the who and the why in a user story. For instance, the how the work will actually be done should come from the team. So let the team do their work. You shouldn't interfere and tell the team how they have to do their job. That's the team's responsibility. Part-time PO, if it's not completely dedicated to the project, they can take a back seat, or they won't be fully dedicated, and that's not something that we want to do. A proxy-driven PO basically usually don't take any decisions. They keep all the decisions to other people to take. Again, not a good look for the product owner. If the product owner is not able to prioritize the user stories properly, they're not able to write the user stories properly, they don't have well-defined goals, that's an anti-pattern. Inflexible PO, right? They don't want to accept the scope, acceptance criteria of the story. They don't want to listen to other people's views. not a good PO. They try to hijack meetings, daily stand-up calls, whatever meetings they're coming in with their own thoughts, only representing their own accomplishments, agenda to stakeholders, not appreciating teamwork, not appreciating the team, not a good pattern for the product owner. Or if they change the sprint goals midway, they don't give proper feedback, they micromanage, they question everything, that's not a good product owner. Now let's look at some team anti-patterns, right? A team is a very important crux of a scrum. If a team basically feels helpless, they feel that they can't ask for help, that's bad, because then if you have any risks or issues or impediments, that won't be brought forward, and you might know it at the end when it's too late. Or if they feel that I want to do everything myself, they don't want to share, then the team's not going to work. It's a collaborative, self-organizing team. If they feel that this isn't my job description, why should I do it? No, it's not all about you. In Scrum, you need to help other people, right? Even if it's not in your job description, you have to go above and beyond. Your goal has to be is to deliver the MVP. It's your the minimal viable product. That is what you should concentrate on, right? It's not all about yourself. If you feel that the project is done, I don't have to think about it anymore. No, that's not either the way to go. You need to see what was done well, how you can improve, contribute as much as you can, right? Some people might feel, if I share my ideas, I don't get credit for it. Why should I do it? No, don't have that mindset. It's a team effort. It's not always an individual effort, right? Or if I just keep getting focused on my work and block out everything else, if there are any other blockers, I don't need to worry about it because it's not affecting my work. That shouldn't be your focus. When you come to your daily stand-up calls, have a group mentality, have a team mentality, right? Don't think that the blockers are not your blockers, so you don't have to think about it. No, it's a blocker of the team. It will affect you, right? It will affect your MVP. So it is your blocker. So you need to help the team resolve it. It may not directly affect you, but it's going to affect your MVP, and you're accountable for that. And then team might feel failure is the worst thing that can happen. Not really. I mean, there might be times when you fail, but Scrum is open. It's very flexible. It's adaptable. Even if you fail, you might fail. That's totally fine. You have ways of picking yourself up and improving as you go along. So failure is definitely not the worst thing that can happen. Now let's look at some ceremonies, right? Let's see what some anti-patterns of daily Scrum are. Some people feel it should be done first thing in the morning. Yes, it's a good thing to do it first thing in the morning, but with distributed teams, different time zones, it's not always possible that it'll be the first thing in the morning for everybody. Try to have it at a time when everybody is available. It's a time, you have to look at the time difference. If you're working with teams, let's say in Australia, India, you have to make sure that it's at a acceptable time for them as well. You must stand up. Initially people used to think that they have to stand up, because it's a daily Scrum, but not really. Try to be comfortable. Just make sure it's time boxed within 15 minutes. If you want to stand up, that's great. People used to think that if you stand up, you won't go beyond 15 minutes because it'll be uncomfortable for people to stand up for a long time. But, that's okay because many people are remote these days, so you don't have to stand up. Be comfortable, sit in a nice chair, but make sure it's time boxed, 15 minutes. Duration depends on the number of people involved. No. You should always try to keep it to a minimum 15 minutes. You're having it on a daily basis, so don't take up too much of the time for people. So no matter how many people you have, and you shouldn't really have more than 5 to 9 people in the team, you should not go beyond 15 minutes. And try, on an average, let's say, give 2 minutes to each team member, right? And always track what is being discussed. And that's the Scrum Master's responsibility to track what's being discussed in daily stand-up. Now let's look at some product backlog anti-patterns, right? This is for the product owner, refining the entire product backlog. No, you don't do that, right? The requirements are going to change, the demands are going to change. So groom a chunk of the product backlog at one time, right? The ones of the higher priority. And we discussed this in some previous slides before that the lower priority items you don't even have to think about it, because they are probably not going to go in. By the time they go in, the requirements are going to change. So at that time you should groom it. If you try to groom the whole product backlog, you might have 1,000 stories in there, right? There's no use, and it's going to change. You're just wasting time. Just have a healthy product backlog, let's say 60 story points, 100 story points, whatever the team can do in the next couple of sprints. Groom that. That is your high product backlog. The rest of the stories you don't have to do right now. The product backlog should have stories which have business value, right? It should be written from the perspective of the user, right? Add value to the user, the customer. Don't slice the product backlog items horizontally like a waterfall. By that I mean, make sure that the user story just doesn't have activities for development or activities for testing. No. The user story should have activities for all the sprint, all the scrum roles, right? It should have development, testing, quality assurance, all of that. Instead, slice the PBI vertically, right? Where users have all aspects of design, development, testing. So these are the product backlog anti-patterns. Now let's look at some sprint anti-patterns, right? So for sprint, you need to have a consistent length of sprints, right? You should not mix and match the length of sprint. Let's say you have a release of 9 sprints in them. You try to have one sprint for 4 weeks, one sprint for 2 weeks. No, that's not going to work. Your team is going to get confused. Your MVP is not going to look good. Your velocity you're not going to get a good velocity. You should always have a consistent length of sprints. If you think 2 week sprints works for you, keep it 2 weeks throughout the release. Try not to take break between sprints, okay? And also don't make the sprints overlap, right? So if your sprint ends on Wednesday, don't start the sprint the next Monday. That's a big break. Also don't start the sprint on the same day the previous sprint ended, so on a Wednesday. You can start the sprint the next day, let's say Thursday. You give some time to the team to think about the next user stories. Sprint 0. Now some teams do sprint 0 for setup, gathering information. You don't really need to do that because you're not providing an incremental product. It's best to start with sprint 1. Because the main thing about Scrum is that you should be adding value to your sprints. Sprint 0 doesn't add any value, but you can have a couple of days here and there before you start sprint 1 to basically look at setup or gather information, set up your infrastructure, things like that. Hardening sprint, I don't like this either. Some Scrum teams will just leave out one sprint only for testing, only for QA. I don't think you need to have a separate sprint for that. The testing and QA should be built into every sprint. So once you're writing your code, that should be tested in each and every sprint, right? The quality should be built into every sprint and shouldn't be left at the end. It should happen in parallel with development. Other sprint anti-pattern is, you don't have any sprint ceremonies, you don't have any sprint planning, no daily sprint calls, no retrospective, no demo. Obviously, that's a no. You need to have all the sprint ceremonies for Scrum to work. Not checking team velocity, right? This is very important. You need to check your team velocity in sprint planning. Otherwise, you cannot allocate stories properly to your team, right? You have to calculate team capacity. Accordingly, you have to allocate the stories. You have to look at ad hoc work. You have to make think about planned vacation, holidays. All those things get built into team velocity. Only then you will have a proper team commitment. Spillover, you should try to avoid spillover of stories to the next sprint as much as possible, right? try to finish whatever stories you committed. Right? That will help in reducing technical debt. That will help in helping you cite stories better. So it's always good to have zero spillover. If stories are spilling over, you need to figure out why they're spilling over, right? There might be something going on that you've not recognized. You may not have the right resources. You might be overcommitting, things like that. So those things you need to figure out. If they're spilling over, the best is, you have to rethink your strategy. Then put the stories that are spilled over back into the product backlog, and you can reprioritize it in the future. Let's look at some sprint retrospective anti-patterns, right? Now, we talked about this before, that in retrospective, the team is going to have some action items, right? And they have to track it. Now, there's an acronym, right? Which is SMART, which we saw earlier, for writing user stories, which is the user story has to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-boxed, right? If you pick up an unsmart action item, right, which is not specific, not measurable, not achievable, not relevant, not time-boxed, then it's an unsmart action item. It's not easy to track it, right? So you use this acronym, and basically you have a good action item that you can track in retrospective. Action item should always have an owner. Some teams follow the RACI matrix.